Welcome to Datagaps webinar. I'm Pooja Gupta, Growth Marketing Manager at Datagaps, and I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Before we get started, we have a couple of quick housekeeping comments. First, we have muted all mics to avoid unintended distractions. Next, we have included a couple of polls which will reflect from time to time between the session, and we would request every attendee to share their response by answering poll questions. Next, finally, at the end of the session, we will open it up for Q&A. Now, today in this webinar, Driving Smarter Decisions with Advanced Power BI Testing Automation, we are here to explore the key challenges in Power BI reporting and how Datagaps BI Validator can help overcome them. Discover how automation can strengthen your BI environment, ensuring accurate, reliable, and consistent insights across your organization. On the panel today, we have Anand Rao, VP Product Marketing at Datagaps, and Subhanshu Dixit, Product Manager at Datagaps. Now, Anand, the stage is all yours.
Great. Thank you, Pooja. So, hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Anand Rao. I'm joined by Subhanshu Dixit here. Today, we'll explore how automating Power BI testing ensures accurate, reliable, and efficient reporting. So many organizations spend hours fixing their Power BI reports due to regression issues, formatting inconsistencies, and complex formula. We have seen teams do manual validation of slicers, filters, and calculated columns, and we have found this error-prone and time-consuming. So Datagaps streamlines all these testing processes of regression and validating the report structures and enhancing the compliance. So let's dive in. So in this session, we'll discuss the importance of BI validation and how automation streamlines this Power BI testing, saving you time and reducing errors. So we'll cover key use cases, real-world scenarios, and how Datagaps BI Validator enhances this testing. You'll also get an overview of Datagaps, our expertise, and how we help businesses ensure data consistency. We'll share success stories from organizations benefiting from Datagaps BI Validator. So to give you a taste of the BI Validator, we'll have a live demo and we'll showcase the solution in action across 5 different use cases we have identified. And finally, we'll wrap up with a Q&A session answering your questions on automating Power BI validation. So let's get started. First, let's explore potential issues in your data pipeline and analytics applications. So a Power BI dashboard with heat maps, bubble charts, and key metrics may seem simple, but errors can arise at any stage from data ingestion to final execution. So data changes can introduce various inconsistencies, and the complexity of the dashboard combined with the number of elements like filters, sliders, bookmarks further amplify the risks. So some common challenges are application upgrades. So Power BI, as you may have seen, updates regularly and may unexpectedly break the reports or alter the visualization. Metadata changes. So even minor modifications of the metadata can cascade through the pipeline, causing errors. Database migrations. So moving from platforms like SQL Server to Snowflake requires ensuring the dashboards produce consistent results across these systems. And data ingestion issues, of course. Poor data quality, missing records, or ingestion failures can compromise the insights that you get. So these issues lead to higher costs, inaccurate reporting, and loss of trust in the data. So in fact, trust issues are the primary reason for declining user adoption of analytics platforms in spite of the significant investment. So with that said, let's look at the data analytics test automation process, which ensures the BI report accuracy integrity, performance, and multiple other validations. So let's go through them. First is the reported data validation. It confirms the reports reflect the underlying data accurately, preventing any misleading insights. Regression and upgrade testing detects changes in the layouts, the calculations, the metadata, while comparative testing ensures the consistency across various environments. The functional validation aligns the reports with business rules, identifying any logic issues and ensuring compliance. Performance and stress testing optimize the report's accessibility and load times under high user demand. And security testing enforces strict access controls, ensuring only authorized users access sensitive reports. Catalog and metadata validation maintain the report structures, the filters, and any visual elements across these different upgrade cycles. So a comprehensive test automation suite offers advanced capabilities such as row-level security, Selenium integration, filter validation, and metadata validation. So automating BI validation reduces these manual errors, it enhances your efficiency, and strengthens the trust in data-driven decisions. So let's go into the use case one, right? Power BI is a powerful BI tool, but ensuring the report accuracy requires rigorous validation across the database. So Power BI to database data comparison ensures all those insights that you're visualizing, it aligns with the source records, and this is critical for financial reporting, compliance, and any operational insights. So this validation process extracts data from Power BI visuals and compares it with SQL Server, Oracle, Snowflake, or any other database. So automated tools like Datagaps BI Validator streamlines this by pulling the report data, applying the transformations, and verifying consistency through row by row and aggregate comparisons. So all the counts, the sums, the averages, and other comparisons. So error detection identifies missing, duplicate, or mismatched records, generating reports for resolution. So the framework also accounts for differences from Power BI's data modeling and transformations. Dynamic filter validation ensures the reports accurately reflect the filtered data, preventing errors in analytics. So integrating all this automated BI testing into data pipelines enhances the consistency across environments, your development, your user acceptance, your production, and streamlines the validation and ensures data integrity before reaching the stakeholders. The second use case is the DAX analysis. So data analysis expressions. So this is the layer in Power BI, and it is the Power BI's primary query language for calculations and aggregations. So ensuring that these DAX generated results match the raw database values is essential for accurate reporting. Since DAX performs in-memory calculations with distinct rounding or filtering or summarization rules, discrepancies often arise when comparing those results to SQL queries or Excel values. And so to validate the DAX calculations, organizations need to perform SQL versus DAX validation or Excel versus DAX validation by running the equivalent queries and comparing the results. This process helps detect mismatches in the calculations and ensures data consistency. Filter, context, and aggregation checks are also critical, the next two, as DAX measures must apply the correct filters and aggregations in various reports. So misalignment in filter application can lead to incorrect totals and misleading insights. The time and business logic validation also play a key role in ensuring that any time-based calculations such as running totals and year-over-year comparison align with the database logic. And finally, performance optimization is another critical factor. An inefficient DAX query or an expression can slow the query execution and degrade the report performance. Use case number 3. So filters and slicers in Power BI enable dynamic data refinement, but ensuring their accuracy requires rigorous testing. So automated validation ensures the applied filters return your correct subsets of data and function across reports. So some of the key validations here include confirming the filters and the slicers apply the expected changes to the visuals that you have in the report, ensuring cross-filtering behavior between report elements, verifying row-level security compliance, the RLS compliance for restricted users, running automated tests on filter combinations to detect any anomalies. So BI test automation streamlines this process by programmatically applying slicer values, comparing the report outputs. So this helps identify any issues caused by incorrect relationships, any filter propagation errors, or any security misconfigurations. So completeness validation, the last one, ensures that this slicers and the filters display all the expected values and preventing any missing selections. So automating these checks enhances the Power BI report reliability, improving the data accuracy and user experience. Regression testing, who can forget regression testing? So this ensures that the updates, modifications, or any data changes do not negatively impact the Power BI reports. So given Power BI's frequent updates, thanks Microsoft, maintaining consistency and accuracy is crucial to building trust in the reports. So automated regression testing includes comparing the old and the new reports, so capturing before and after snapshots to compare the visuals, numbers, the metadata, and the performance across these filtered data sets. Validating the data sources, so ensuring any source data changes do not break the calculations, the aggregations, or any business logic. Ensuring the layout consistency, so verifying that the report design, the filter placements, the interactivity, and the formatting remain intact. And finally, of course, is the CI/CD, the continuous integration, continuous development integration. So running these automated tests whenever a change is deployed, it helps it detect the regressions early. So BI validation tools streamline regression testing by capturing all the report states, automating the test execution, and flagging any discrepancies. So this proactive approach prevents faulty updates from reaching the end users and enhances the data reliability and minimizes any downtime caused by the unexpected report issues. Finally, of course, after regression testing, you want to do stress testing. So Power BI stress testing ensures reports perform efficiently under high user loads and varying data volumes. So organizations relying on Power BI for enterprise level reporting must validate its scalability to maintain a seamless user experience. So some of the factors as part of stress testing includes simulating concurrent users. So testing the report's responsiveness under multiple active users to identify any performance limits. Measuring the load times. So evaluating data refresh speeds and visual rendering to detect bottlenecks. Validating the query performance. So as I said, ensuring the DAX and the SQL queries execute efficiently without delays under these large volumes. And testing the large data sets. So accessing or assessing the report behavior and responsiveness with high data volumes. So BI validation tools automate this whole stress testing process by simulating different user sessions, multiple configured user sessions, capturing performance metrics, detecting any inefficiencies. So regular stress testing enables organizations to optimize Power BI performance, improve system stability, and prevent crashes during peak usage. Imagine end of quarter reporting or some other peak usage time. So this ensures a smooth reporting experience for end users. So now that I've walked you through the 5 use cases, let me tell you a little bit about Datagaps. So at Datagaps, we focus on end-to-end validation of the data journey, from data ingestion to report creation in Power BI or Tableau or any other tool. So ensuring the data quality, integrity, and accuracy. So our DataOps suite consists of multiple products that can be purchased individually or as a bundle at a discounted rate. The suite can be deployed on-premise or in the cloud, so securely behind your firewalls, ensuring we never access your data. The DataOps suite has a web interface. It's built on Apache Spark, making it highly scalable. Many of our customers use it to efficiently compare billions of rows of data, ensuring optimal performance and reliability in Power BI reports. We also offer a test data manager, which generates synthetic test data based on the production data sets that you have, while maintaining all the correlations and masking any PII data. So this is crucial for compliance and security in testing environments. So by automating data validation, our solution helps organizations reduce errors, enhance efficiency, and improve the overall decision making. So with robust scalability and enterprise-grade security, we empower businesses to trust their data and their analytics. So I briefly touched on this, and Datagaps offers end-to-end data testing. So the pipeline here represents a typical data journey covering key processes in traditional data warehousing. So while modern approaches have evolved, the core principle remains the same: ensuring trust and accuracy in decision-critical data. So at the beginning, you have the data profiling and quality monitoring. So data enters in various formats: tables, flat files, JSON, APIs. So we support Tableau and Power BI as sources. So we have around 20 to 25 key metrics per element. So null counts, distinct counts, and we detect anomalies by comparing the profile over time. Then is data quality and ETL validation. So applying the data quality rules ensures the data meets all the business requirements, detecting the null values, duplicates, inconsistencies. So we have a low code or a no code interface, depending on your preference, which simplifies the rule creation with SQL or Scala for advanced users. Our ETL validator replicates ETL processes, highlighting any discrepancies to verify accuracy before the data reaches the analytics. And then we got the quality monitoring and analytics validation. So once data is stored in the warehouse, we monitor quality scores from element to enterprise level, alerting you of any potential issues. Our platform enables visual and data level reconciliation across dashboards, ensuring that the analytics aligns with the source data. And then you have the whole automation piece. We have what we call as the shift left approach, where we are catching issues early, reducing the cost and effort. We have machine learning that detects the anomalies, CI/CD integration, and we also offer generative AI. And this improves our workflows by generating data quality rules and summarizing the report differences. So let me talk about the success stories. We have worked with several organizations. We have worked with a large advisory firm that was looking to migrate to Microsoft Azure. They needed ETL monitoring, data quality validation, Power BI regression testing. So they use ETL Validator and DataOps Suite. So they had an 18-member team, and they automated the testing and monitoring, leading to a 50% reduction in their QA costs, 45% faster migration testing, and the entire 100% of their data was validated. So they continue using our tool and recently expanded with additional licenses. This major university engaged us to validate their on-premise to Snowflake migration and later upgraded their ETL tool. So with all these changes, using ETL Validator, they ensured accurate ETL processing while BI Validator performed the regression testing for Tableau and Oracle BI reports. So the reporting errors had previously damaged their reputation and making accuracy critical. So additionally, they implemented data quality monitoring for their student information system. So previously, manual testing covered only a small fraction of their data. With our tools, they achieved 100% data validation and scaled their testing efforts, and they cut their QA costs by 60%. And finally, we have a pharma giant. So as a top 5 Tableau customer, remember, top 5, they struggled with upgrade, regression, and performance testing. They had 50,000 users, 10,000 workbooks. So you can imagine the scale of this installation. So manual upgrades took several months. So our tools cut testing time from several months to days, allowing all frequent accurate upgrades without any performance issues. So all this is great, but to put pedal to the metal, now I'm going to hand it over to Subhanshu for a demo on how Datagaps solves all the 5 use cases that I just spoke about. Subhanshu, over to you.
Thank you for that. I assume you guys can see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
So let's get started with the next slide right there. So what we're going to cover is each of these test cases a little bit in detail. And of course, if there are some questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A section. And for any detailed premises or other application related questions, we can always have a subsequent demo specific and tailor-made for your use cases itself. Let's get started with the very first use case, which is a Power BI to database data comparison. The test case screenshot is what we're going to be looking into as well. Before we jump into this, a key pointer that we need to cover is our connectivity to these BI tools, especially Power BI, and any corresponding database to begin with. On your screen, you see specific JDBC connectors, flat files connectors, XML, JSON, hierarchical file connectors, and a lot more. These define basically agnostic connections which you can use for your report data comparison. In the broader scope of things, we are also a keen player in the migration validation space. So as you can imagine, if you're migrating from any system to the other, we have that covered. In our use case, the connections of your database depend on your data sets and your strategy that you're working with regards to your different layers in your system. But the connectivity to Power BI requires either a username password credential, a service principal, or just an interactive login where you don't have to pass the credentials down into the system. You can just use a pop-up login from Azure or in this case, Power BI itself. One key pointer that I want to define while we are at sources and before we get into the test cases themselves. The application can be installed directly onto your infrastructure, be it an Azure-based system, AWS-based system, Google Cloud-based system, or even an on-premise deployment. We support all of them. And because we are Apache Spark-based, we can easily handle large volumes of data as well as large number of test cases. More on that later. Now let's jump into the test cases and see how exactly we achieve these type of validations. Of course, one of the key things I want to specify is that this will be kind of a surface level walkthrough. For detailed demos, you can once again reach out to us directly. And before I jump into the test case, one last thing that I want to define are the variety of nodes and the customization that's provided to the end user. Most of the test cases that you're going to see today are generated using a wizard. The principle here is you might not want to create test cases individually for your 500 workbook system. So it's better for you to just use the wizard and create the test cases in bulk. And if there's any customization, you can either use the components that you see on your screen to define further validations or any post-validation process. We will see all of this in action in our current example. So let's put this particular system to the test. I have a Power BI report which I need to validate right there. What you see on your screen is the embedded version of that Power BI report fetched live from the server. I have access to multiple workspaces which I had defined earlier right here, and all the reports within these workspaces. The problem statement here is that I need to ensure that the numbers I see within my graphs are valid. This is a fairly simple Power BI report. I have another complex report to elaborate further on this. The key aspect here is that we have access to a lot of this information built in. What that implies here is that we have access in terms of the visual information converted into data sets. So this is the export of these graphs and KPIs. And take a look at this number right here, 26590 for total children 0. If I apply a filter to this Power BI report, while the embedded report obviously gets altered, we see this change in our numbers as well. This is to say that the application can apply dynamic filters and slicers to your Power BI reports. This will come in handy when we discuss validation of reports as well. But in a nutshell, this is one of the key aspects of the product. And because we can get these data sets out, so we basically the information within these graphs and complex KPIs out as data sets, now it's very easy for us to run validations. Of course, you can run validations based on rules, based on machine learning based pattern recognition to apply a bit of, say, great expectations on top of your BI reports as well. But here our use case is reconciliation centric. We have a source of truth. In this case, it's a Snowflake table. And we want to ensure that this Snowflake table, the output from our Snowflake table, in this case, this particular query, is what's being used to validate the BI report. So we have dataset A, which is the output of our BI report. We have dataset B, the output from our database, Snowflake. And then we run data comparison between them. Data comparison is a node that takes care of a lot of things in an automated fashion. Data type mismatches, column name mismatches, column order mismatches, all of these things are handled inherently within the product while giving the end user a good amount of customizability within each and every test case. So there's a lot more things you can shift around here, but the principle here is to create these test cases in bulk and take care of these manual painstaking events that any manual tester has to go through. The end result is the segregation of good and bad records into data sets, as well as a proper report being generated, sent out, as well as archived for the end user to always look back into. So there's a lot that we are doing within every execution. What you see on your screen is just a simple example of this, where we are working with this aggregation and we are keeping a, say, quite refreshing casual threshold of 10% here as definition of a good record. And if something is outside that threshold, we are marking it out as an anomaly, in this case, mismatch. And as you see here, we're working with just 6 records, luckily. So if there are mismatches, we can easily look at them. But even if you're working with, say, 10,000 mismatched records, while you can download a good chunk of them using the report section right there, after the validation is done, you can choose to do multiple things. These are the post-validation processes that I was talking about, which could be saving the mismatched records, raising notifications, sending these results out to a, say, CI/CD tool set like Jenkins, or perhaps working with Azure DevOps test plans and define the connections there as well as needed. Because we understand that at the end of the day, just finding out the issue is not the end of the solution there. We want to make sure that you do something about it. And if there is an automated process which can be done, you should have the capabilities of doing that. Kind of sister example to this is alongside the report data compare itself, where instead of the report that we were working with earlier, now we have a bit more complex reports, so to speak. So we are trying to illustrate that we work with a variety of complexity as well. So in this case, we have a much more realistic report with a lot of financial columns present, and Excel is our code base. And to do this, we just create the queries right there. There's AI assistance to help you create the queries. So if you want to, say, just create aggregations on income, I can just ask it to generate it. The application knows which columns I'm talking about inherently because we send out the context. And while you can use OpenAI or Azure OpenAI for such a use case, the application does come with a generative AI system, which is a boxed LLM within the system itself. This seems to be taking a bit of time right there. We can skip that for now. But just to illustrate this further, the application does support multiple AI toolsets, and this is just one of the toolsets that we're working with. This query was generated using the generative AI system itself, so it takes off a good amount of time from the end user in creating aggregations. So even if you're working with multiple files, multiple data sets, you should still be able to create the aggregation as required. That's the first one, which is report to data comparison. Going back to our slides. Now, of course, report to data is just one facet to it. Let's discuss what DAX queries and databases can also do. It's a similar type of motif where we have a source and target, or in this case, we have a couple of use cases which define themselves as the source of truth as well as what the testing use case needs to be. And here I'm just illustrating another way of running the test case. If you want to trigger a particular transformation and then call out the validation immediately, you can do that within the application. And this is just one way to do it. You can call the test case from outside the system as well, if that is the requirement. The main difference between report to data and, in this case, DAX query to DB is the fact that we are running a DAX query here. Now, at this point, I can either just use a simple evaluate, as I have done here, to pull the data model as is out of the system and then run comparisons against the database. So that's what we're doing here. And here we see that there are mismatches within our data model. However, these mismatches are centric to the email address itself between the two data sets. So we are fairly fine here. But the real, kind of kicker comes in if you really want to apply any kind of transformation and if you want to run a genuine DAX query, you can do that as well. Generative AI systems come here as well to kind of help you create the queries in accordance. But in a nutshell, what we are doing is that we are validating the data model and the output of data model itself if you're going ahead with validation use cases. Let's quickly go back to the deck so that we move on to the next one, which is the comprehensive testing of filters and slicers. So let's go back and explain what this really means. So I'll go to a use case which we have seen already right here. And if you remember at the start of this test case, I had applied a filter to my Power BI report specifically. So if I'm applying a filter, I should be able to see it within filter sections. Now, these are report level filters, page level filters, visual level filters, and slicers and everything in between. And the best part here is as an end user, I can, of course, dynamically apply a specific value, or better yet, dynamically apply a filter, say parameter. Now, these parameters can be defined within the end user, by the end user itself within the application. There are local and global flavors for this, as well as dynamic and static flavors for the same. Meaning, if you want to pick up these values directly from your data set, take, for example, latest date to measure your data lag, you can do all of that within the system in an automated fashion itself. But that's not where this filter validation really comes into play. So when you apply a particular filter, you're ensuring, in this case, when the filter for gender F is applied, you're ensuring that these numbers are valid, sure. But this is a simple example. You might have 6 or 7 filters present within your test case, and you've defined your test case once, but you want to reuse it as many times as possible without any manual intervention. That's where the BI DevOps section really shines in. We're going to come back to this with regards to stress testing. But the focus here is on filter data sets and what it accomplishes. So here you will see there's a data set already created, and it says South, Technology, First Class Furniture, Arizona, and the same thing except for Colorado and different states. So what exactly is this? Let's regenerate this to kind of show and exaggerate on what this is. What you see here is a report similar to the BI report that we were working with here, except I've selected a few filters inherently within my system. And then I can, of course, manually add more as well, but you will see the number of combinations as defined with an upper limit. And so now I'm going to recreate the combination. So let's go back to the test case. The test case that we were seeing earlier, if I want to, now I can apply these filters, validate it, and then apply the next set of filters. And one thing to quickly kind of clarify within our use case itself is that when we are applying a filter to our Power BI report, this is pretty important, because if you're applying a specific filter to our Power BI report, we should be sure to apply such a filter to our query or other conditions as well. So here it could be something as simple as applying the same parameter right here. And what this basically accomplishes is ensuring your filters and slices are working as intended. There's another facet to validation of filters which we will come into shortly, but this is just one way we ensure that filters and slices are working. The other facet is in terms of catalog, which I will discuss towards the end of this showcase. The next one, of course, is regression, and we cover a lot when we discuss regression within our use case. So let me kind of show you what that implies. So when we talk about regression, what we are basically trying to illustrate is the difference between reports. These reports could be reports between QA and prod, or these reports could be the same report last Monday versus this Monday. Once again, we'll start with a simple example and then we'll showcase the complex one. And here we see that the application, with just a simple drag and drop use case here, so it's very easy to create these test cases, is highlighting all the textual differences between our two reports. And if I switch over to appearance, it's going to showcase us a few extra as well. Basically, it's going to show us the volume difference, in this case, the visual differences. Key one here being that the alignment of our visual has been shifted from center to left. That's not the end of it. There's an entire AI generated summary for you as an end, which you can view as an end user and kind of understand what differences are present here. And the way this looks from an end user perspective, just to kind of show how everything comes together, is as an end user, if you're tasked to create these test cases for an entire dashboard, you can go into generate BI data flows and create multiple test cases within a few clicks. All it asks of you is define where to pick up these reports from, drag and drop these test cases. So let's just go drag and drop them, or just click on them as well as required. And the application will create the test cases for you. All those concepts of filter and dynamic filter applications can also be deployed here. But in a few clicks, you'll just create the reports and they will look a little like this particular folder of reports generated all together just a few months ago. So everything was done in less than a few minutes here. And of course, you're not going to individually run test cases. You can call these pipelines or individual test cases as well from other tool sets like CI/CD pipelines and the DevOps sections that we have discussed earlier. And you can define how you want to run these test cases in sequence and parallel, define notifications for failures, for conditional passes, and of course, the exact configuration of processing, the engines which will run on this, all that can be configured. But as an end user, mostly you will be looking at the run history, because we do keep run history for every test case and report. And you'll see that the application has generated a proper report, which can be completely customized for the end user, where it's going to tell you out of the 14 or maybe hundreds of reports that you validated, how many have failed. Luckily for me, only a single one, AdventureWorks, has failed right there. And in this case, once again, we were looking at regression use case between the two, and we see the differences highlighted. So this is a bit more of the report that we were looking at, and we see, yes, there are textual differences in title, a few data differences as well. Let's switch over to appearance, and we'll see that the widget for calendar year has been shifted as well as for quarter has been shifted. Apart from that, if there are filters which are applied within the report between the two versions or between QA and prod, which are different, say somebody's changing Europe to EU, we capture those changes inherently within the system itself. And finally, if there are differences with regards to the performance of the report, do note we are going to the server live, applying these dynamic filters and slices, and then fetching this visual or meta report or tabular information. And we can keep track of the time it takes for loading here. And we can compare that to give you alerts if your report is perfectly fine, but for some reason it's taking, say, twice the amount of time to load it. So you'll be the first one notified using this particular test case. So with regression, we kind of cover a lot of our nodes together. The last one, I presume, yes, it's a stress testing. So let's discuss what stress testing is about and where exactly we end with this. So stress testing is kind of like a different bar here. It's kind of goes into line with row level security as well. We do security testing as well. It's not one of the use cases here, but we do security testing amongst other testing like the observability on BI reports that we also do. But stress testing primarily relies on simulating user load onto specific reports to see if the reports load in within expected SLA time. That's our main use case here. We do have a test data manager for generating synthetic data as well. So if that's a requirement, these two can work in tandem. But in most use cases, it's about the user dependency that we want to work with here, because that's the true requirement and true definition of what a BI report is. So I'll just switch over to a different container, and a quick showcase here. You have access to a lot of different environments and containers, so you can easily switch between projects, and as a manager you can allocate specific users to specific projects while maintaining proper logical isolation between them. That way it's easier for you to manage everything within a single instance itself. And of course, what we are specifically looking into is a Power BI report right there. And the results are pretty straightforward, but what we want to run, specifically look into is the run options. So this is all the options you get as an end user. There's a lot more to it, so I'll just go through them real quick. But basically, you get access into defining how many users you want to simulate this particular stress test for, how long between 0 to 100 or 0 to 60, depending on your max users. How long do you want users to basically sit at a particular report before shifting out? What are your self-defined SLAs? And of course, there are considerations to key concepts such as timeout. In a nutshell, timeout is the amount of time it takes for an end user before they click F5 or refresh the page. And the reason this is important is that most BI use cases, including Power BI, doesn't really distinguish between the original request from the user and the new refreshed request from the user. Basically, on Monday morning, if you are facing some lag or say the reports aren't loading for you, pressing F5 just puts more stress on the BI servers. This is noted to the extent that we need to include it within our sections as well. But again, you can define your very own. And the user list is completely optional. Even if you have a single user, we can define or reuse the same user hundreds of times to simulate user load. However, as you can imagine, if you want to stress test for specific user groups, as that's part of a lot of SLAs and guidelines that are created with BI projects, you can do that as well. And the end result, of course, is the run history, where it's going to show you exactly what the end results are for a particular report. It has a lot of metrics, which we don't really have a lot of time to get into, but it takes care of the amount of time it takes for, say, filters to be applied in parallel, or what's the maximum amount of time for that, how many SLA failures, how many times when we applied certain filters did we get a 401 error or a 400 error, or so on and so forth. You can still go much deeper within every report as well if you would like to, and there's a lot more to it. But in a nutshell, this is what concludes today's demo. And like I said, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more with regards to reporting, with regards to integrations, with regards to how we work with Power BI reports as well. But at this point, we'd like to take a pause so that we can wrap this up. And before that, let's take some questions. Pooja, are you here?
Yes. So thank you. Anand, for an in-depth understanding of Datagaps BI Validator and its use cases, and Subhanshu for an extensive demo of Datagaps BI Validator for automated testing of Power BI environments. So we have two questions in the panel, in the Q&A section. First one, what strategies does BI Validator use to prevent data inconsistencies and during migration use cases?
So the migration use case is particularly powerful for us because we support something called cross BI migrations as well. I can quickly showcase a quick use case of this before we jump off, as I do have that ready. But basically, the migration use cases, within migration use case, there's the data side of it. So say you're going between Power BI to the next one, which is, say, Tableau. So if you're migrating from Tableau to Power BI, you'd really want to make sure that you're validating the data sets, that you're validating the visuals, that you're also validating the filters, because you want to make sure that if a Tableau report has certain filters, you have those same filters within Power BI as well. So all of this is also handled as one of our use cases where we can keep track of the data structures between our Power BI and Tableau report. That's what you're seeing right now. Data structures pulled in from Power BI report and the same graphs and KPIs pulled in from Tableau being validated against one another. And if there are differences between them, even if there are minute differences, such as a point rounding error, we can capture something as minute as this as well. The other facet of it is when we want to capture the visual differences and filters and slicers differences. And as you can imagine, that's where the AI summary can really come into play. Because the AI summary can tell you something very simple, which is, hey, you're using different colors, you're using different fonts. And the best part here is that you can customize these AI reports as well. Of course, for a typical migration between Power BI to Power BI, regression is going to play the major role. But report to data and observability for the production runs keeps track of all the bases that Anand was showcasing at the very start, all the different test cases. Those are different dimensions on which you can validate your BI report.
Sure. Thanks, Shumanshu. Next is, how does your tool ensure auditability and traceability of changes in Power BI reports over time?
So the main concern with auditability and changes in a Power BI report is, well, you'll create a pipeline for the very first time and everything's going to run fine. But say 3 months down the line, there are 20 changes which might not have been noted for. And even if they have been noted for, say you're working with a true CI/CD system, You want to make sure that your test cases are in line with your version, because as an end user, you're definitely version controlling your BI reports. You should also version control your test cases. So that's one of the key aspects of our application, which is we can version control our test cases and associate them with the existing Power BI report as well. There's a lot more in terms of connecting to, say, test plans, to governance tools and other aspects where this links itself, where what it basically leads into is that a tiny change in, say, the transformation in layer 1 and layer 2 of your data pipeline has impending effects on unrelated BI reports. So we have seen this happen quite a lot, and a lot of our clients have told us that they might change a few rules here and there, but some other report which was unintended has been updated. The application can keep track of all of these because it keeps track of all the run histories, and within the test case itself, the definition of test cases itself can be tracked across multiple versions. That helps in keeping track of the changes the pipeline has gone through and the changes the DQ pipeline has also gone through for this particular use case.
Great. Thanks. So these are the questions that we had for today. And this is next, I have shared the YouTube link for 4 challenges that Power BI users faces. Please check it out, all the attendees. Next, I have also shared the BI Validator data sheet if you want to have a look within the Q&A section. And I've also shared one of the case study that reflects how Power BI challenges have been taken up by us for one of our client very aggressively, and it gave them very good results. Then fourth is a blog, which is very extensive blog that the future of Power BI testing automation with Datagaps BI Validator. Next, Anand, over to you. We are done.
Great. Thanks, Subhanshu, for this excellent demo. To recap, folks, we have covered 5 different use cases: Power BI to database data comparison. The second was where we looked at the DAX queries to the database comparison. Third was when we looked at a comprehensive testing of filters and slicers in Power BI. The fourth was the Power BI regression testing. And the fifth was the Power BI stress testing. So we've covered like an entire gamut of it, and we have shown how Datagaps addresses each of these tests. So here's our contact information for any follow-up or inquiries. So you can reach us at contact@datagaps.com for more details about our product portfolio, for any demos that you have. You're seeing Subhanshu here demoing it, and for any specific use cases, even if it's, before the Power BI reports, the ETL pipelines, the data quality monitoring. So you can scan this QR code you see here and explore how Datagaps can help your data validation and test automation needs. So we are committed to empowering organizations such as yours with trusted, high-quality testing, BI validation, and your overall data ops strategy. So our team is here to help. You can schedule a demo, start a proof of concept, or just connect with us to discuss your specific challenges. We are here to collaborate and help drive efficiency, accuracy, and confidence in your data operations. So thank you for joining us in today's session. We look forward to closely working with you. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone, again. Thanks for today's webinar.